What's up, everybody? Troy Cartwright here. Welcome back to another episode of 10-Year Town. Before we get started, I wanted to let everyone know that I have a brand new record out called Bygones, and I would love it if you guys would give it a listen, and I hope it makes you feel something. Thanks. Today's guest is Katie Fagan. Katie is the head of A&R for Prescription Songs here in Nashville. She has an incredibly interesting story. She started out as Dr. Luke's assistant back in 2011. We talk about some of the things that she tried early on to get her foot in the door in the music business and some of her favorite success stories from her journey so far. I know you guys are going to love this episode, so without further ado, here she is, Katie Fagan. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
I always start this thing off with the same question, which is, how long have you been in town?
I am coming up on 8 years.
Wow.
So it'll be 8 years in October. Does that still qualify for this podcast?
Oh, yeah. I am also 8 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm not even qualified. I still got 2 more years to really make something happen.
Okay. Oh, same. When did you move here?
It was June of 2016.
Okay.
And I wish I would have written it down.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
in typical, it seems like a guy thing. I don't know if it is. I just sort of was here.
Yep.
And then just didn't think about it for like 3 more years. And then it's like, when did I move here again? Oh, yeah, June.
The only reason I really remember is because when we got here, Halloween was right after that. And
Gotcha.
so that I can correlate and remember. But
Gotcha.
But yeah.
So where'd you move from?
Los Angeles.
Okay. And are you from Los Angeles?
I am not.
Okay.
I lived in LA for almost 7 years.
Gotcha.
And I'm from Indiana originally.
Oh, nice.
So born and raised, never left, graduated college, moved to LA.
Gotcha. Where'd you go to college? In
Indiana University in Bloomington.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I was just there, but I can't remember why.
Really?
I was probably playing a show or something.
Yeah, maybe. There's actually a cute little music scene there.
Yeah. I've definitely been to Bloomington at some point.
There's a Bluebird. It's a bar. I think it's just called the Bluebird.
Oh, gotcha.
But we do have a Bluebird there.
Okay. Affiliated or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Similar vibe though.
What did you study in college?
I studied popular vocal performance.
Okay.
So once upon a time, I thought maybe I would be a singer.
Yeah.
Started studying music, vocal lessons, everything in high school. And when I got to college, had a quick stint in fashion design.
Okay.
Realized that wasn't for me. And there's a great music school at Indiana University, but it's pretty much all classical and opera. So
Gotcha.
Dabbled in that a little bit, realized I didn't really want to do that. And there's a program at IU where you can create your own major.
Okay.
And so I created one called Popular Vocal Performance. And I got to take some really amazing classes, make my own curriculum. I took music of the Beatles, music of Bob Dylan, history of jazz.
Amazing.
All sorts of, pretty much any, music class you can imagine. I took a couple semesters of theory. And then pretty much realized halfway through senior year, what am I doing? I don't know. I don't think I'm cut out for this.
Yeah. Was that like a specific realization, or did it just dawn on you slowly, or what was it?
It's a really good question. I don't know. I think for my end of year project, my senior year, I recorded a 4-song demo, which was basically like 4 covers.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was fun, but I remember thinking, I don't really know what the aha moment was. There was definitely an aha moment, but I thought, okay, this is not I'm not cut out for this. I'm not an artist. I'm a human being. I think if I would have known songwriting was a career, I probably would have given that a go, but I didn't at the time.
Right.
I thought, like every other person, I think, that, all artists just write their songs. So I had no idea that publishing was a thing. So I think, but I did know that there was a business side. So I thought maybe I'll give that a go and see if I can get out of Indiana somehow and figure that out.
And so what did that look like?
So I was, having a moment with one of my roommates my senior year, and was telling her, oh, what am I going to do with my life? And she had an older brother who she knew had a couple internships in music once upon a time. So she very kindly asked if I wanted to be connected to him. And he was so kind to me and hopped on a call with me pretty much immediately. Was like, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know, but I like finding new music. I like discovering new music. I love listening to music. It's such a huge passion of mine. He said, okay, that sounds like A&R. Let me connect you to a few people.
Yeah. So
he connected me to someone who was the SVP of urban music at Warner Chappell at the time. This guy named Juan Madrid. And this other guy named Chris Anacute, who was SVP of A&R at Universal Motown in LA. Introduced me to him and said, this guy signed Katy Perry. You guys should know each other. And I couldn't believe it because I just didn't understand how I was immediately connected to someone who had signed Katy Perry. But essentially what ended up happening was I ended up getting an internship at Warner Chappell.
Yeah.
With the first guy he introduced me to. Chris was a very busy guy, so we just stayed in touch. And but the internship, basically, I had to extend my graduation because I had to get school credit. But I had no. This was my first internship in music, so I was late in the game. Other than a lot of my friends had internships every summer. I was a camp counselor, so
yeah. When you were late to the game, like sort of by like a year,
totally.
But when you're 22, a year is forever,
totally. And when I started looking at entry level jobs, they all want 1 to 2 years of experience, and I had nothing besides I was a water ski instructor. So
and to be fair, I think being a camp counselor probably actually makes you more qualified for most jobs in the music business.
Yeah. I don't regret it at all. I'm really glad that I did what I did, and I loved my summers. So I'm so glad that I didn't do internships, honestly, which maybe is not the right thing to tell young people, but I think it taught me a lot. And I was young. I think it was the best. Like, what other time do you get to be a camp counselor besides in your late teens?
And what other time do you get to be young and have you have responsibility, but
totally
not really. I mean, I have the same thought all the time. I'm like, man, I should have moved to Nashville sooner.
Yeah.
And done this, but I don't know. I was living my life. Like I sang on the back of a golf cart in Hershey Park, Pennsylvania for 2 summers.
Amazing.
And it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was an insane job to have.
Of course.
But it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And, I could have gotten an internship in, I don't know, something.
Yeah.
Which is what I ended up doing between my junior and senior year of college. But I hated it. Or I wasn't good at it, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I hated it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Those jobs build character.
Yeah.
And they do teach, I do think it teaches you a lot. I mean, I was responsible for 10-year-old girls for 6 weeks. I think there, in a weird way, there's a lot of parallel there when you become a publisher and you're taking care of songwriters.
No doubt.
So yeah, that was what ultimately got me out to LA.
And once you were there, did you stay?
I did. I was there for, it was a 3-month internship. So it was pretty quick, and I was hoping for a job after. There weren't any positions open for me, but to be honest, it was a pretty standard, in LA internship. I didn't do a ton of, I did a lot of CD sorting, and
Intern
eventually,
work.
yes, exactly. But I was still, again, I didn't know what publishing was. I looked up Warner Chappell when I got the gig and was like, oh, cool. There's big artists signed here. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I still didn't fully understand what publishing was. And so anyway, all that time I stayed in touch with Chris, the other guy I had been introduced to. And when the internship came up, he still didn't have a job or know of anything for me. And I still hadn't met him in person. But he just said, keep in touch with me. You never know. Things pop up all the time.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a job in PR for a very quick 6 months after that. My boss at Warner Chappell had a friend who was a publicist, and it wasn't music, but he said it's entertainment publicity. So it's adjacent. And if you need a job, this might be something to at least get into. So 6 months being, it was a long 6 months because I realized publicity was not for me.
Yeah.
And along the way, when I was pretty miserable in that job, again, I continued to just check in with Chris every so often. And one of those times when I was pretty desperate and I said, I'll be an intern again. I'll be a janitor in your office, whatever it takes to get back into music. Just let me know, say the word. And he just so happened to be sitting with my now boss. And he said, Dr. Luke's looking for an assistant. Send me your resume. And the rest is history, as they say. So that was that process started in November 2010. And then I got the job started in February 2011.
Yeah.
In LA.
Good for you for
Yeah.
being consistent.
Yes. As Chris told me, I was respectful but persistent.
Yeah.
Which is something that I share with people a lot when they're asking for advice, because I'm like, that was actually a good nugget for me to know. I mean, you never want to annoy people, but you also want people to know that you're hungry and that you're willing to do it. So
yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah.
But you clearly it worked out.
It did.
So what was that like, being an assistant to Dr. Luke?
It was a trip. It was fun.
Like I don't even, in my mind, I have no idea like what the job even entails, like on a day-to-day basis.
It's, it was different every day. I had a few things that were consistent. I was his personal assistant. So, groceries, laundry, helped him get on phone calls. I drove him to appointments, meetings. My favorite thing that I got to do was I got to make like snack plates for all the writers. So whenever he would have writers and artists come over, I would make like a fruit plate or, something like that.
Amazing.
And make sure everybody's got coffee, all that stuff. So, those were sort of the consistent things that I did. And then it was really whatever he needed and whatever was going to make his life a little easier, because he's a really busy guy. So, it was honestly such a fun experience. I couldn't believe that I got the job. I couldn't believe that he took a chance on me. And so I think those first 2 years I was so just soaking it all in and just was willing to do whatever. And
are you on call? Like do you work like 7 days a week in this kind of job? Is it like Monday through Thursday? Like what's the...
It was Monday to Friday. I definitely was always on my phone and really had to be available if needed, but he's cool. Like he was not tough in terms of, hitting me up at 3 a.m. being like, yo, where's my, like,
it's my juice.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
The times that I had to work maybe wonky hours or if he was traveling or something, but for the most part, it was mostly 10 to 7, I'd say. And again, just depending on what was going on, I would just make myself available.
Yeah. Amazing.
But yeah, it was fun. It was, and again, I think I inadvertently learned publishing. I learned so much in those 2 years just from watching, hey, go call Bonnie, go call J Cash, go call, Lunch Money, like all of our writers who were around, like when he was working with these artists, he would just, hey, get Claude Kelly on the phone, have him come over. Like I started to learn, he's so brilliant at what he does. And I got to watch the relationships that he had and watch him be a publisher and curate these amazing rooms. And, he'd write melodies with one person and then put other writers in the next room to write lyrics. And so again, at the time, I don't know that I fully comprehended that that's what publishing was, but I remember thinking, whatever this is, that is cool. And I want to do that.
I think that's what you see too with a lot of these unbelievably successful songwriters.
Yeah.
You look at someone like Ashley Gorley and you're like, how's he doing it?
Yeah.
And it's, first off, they're great at writing songs.
Yep.
But also they are great publishers. Hardy is an amazing songwriter. He's also an amazing publisher. And I think that's, for any songwriter, learning how to be a publisher too. Even for me, I'm incredibly introverted.
Yeah.
And I hate to bother anyone. And, I send the song now.
Yeah.
To my artist friends.
Yeah.
I just have to have, I got to get over it.
Yeah, you do. You do. And it's hard because, 99% of the time we're just, it's rejection. And so it's tough. But I think my favorite thing learning from Luke back then too was, again, seeing this guy has so many hits and he still wants to collaborate and he still wants to bring in someone else who does something better than he does. And I think what a cool and interesting and I don't know, an unexpected thing from someone of his stature. I would expect that someone like that would say, well, I'm just the best at everything. But it was constant. I mean, it was always thinking like, okay, who is going to be the best person for this room today?
And when you're making these calls to people, is this like in advance or would this be like the artist is at the house and you're telling them to get over there right now?
It depended. I'd say most of the time it was planned, but yeah, there were definitely times where, because sometimes artists would just show up too, hey man, I'm in the area, let's work, and so, but it's been cool too I've been at Prescription a long time. I'm a rare breed. Coming up on, it'll be 14 years in February. And, but I feel really grateful that I think about, Claude Kelly lives here now and we're homies, and whenever I get to hang with him in public and I'm introducing him to people or vice versa, I'm like, I used to bring this guy coffee and now we're friends and we get to work together on stuff. And, I think there's something just so special about publishing from that standpoint. And I, again, feel really grateful that I got to really see it from such a small family type vibe and just working out of Luke's house.
Yeah.
And I think, I've really tried to maintain that since as long as I've been here.
Yeah. Such a close look at like how it really works.
Yeah.
Which has obviously made you a very successful publisher as well. So how did it kind of transition from you're in like an assistant role to working for Prescription?
I think I was coming up on a couple years as an assistant, and my boss at the time, Luke obviously was my boss, but I had there was another woman who was running Prescription at the time named Becca Tishker.
Gotcha.
And she was awesome and is awesome. And she, I remember one day, I was probably a year and a half in, and I remember she came over to the house and I was unpacking groceries, and she came over to me and she goes, "What are you doing?" And I just looked at her and I said, "What do you mean?" She said, why are you doing this?" I was like, "That's my job." And she was like, nah, we got to get you, what do you really want to do? And I'll never forget that, that was my entire resume then was, yes, I'm of course working for Luke, but I'm an assistant. And I think she really saw something in me at the time. And we grabbed dinner, I think, and I told her that I was super interested in publishing and that I really wanted to do A&R. And we sat at her dining room table and she introduced me to like 6 people that she thought would be good people for me to meet.
Yeah.
And she, said, "This is a relationship business. You got to start meeting people now. And you got to start building that Rolodex and find more people who are in your corner and people that you're going to come up with in the business." And which was awesome. And that sort of spread like wildfire. I met those people. And then when I wasn't working late, I would try and meet as many people as possible. I started going to shows and so essentially, once I hit that 2-year mark, Becca was starting to build out Prescription as a company, and she, basically said, can I snag Katie and have her come over here? And Luke was super supportive, and he, was also very much. He had come to me and asked, what did I want to do? And I told him if there's a spot at Prescription, that's where I want to be. Yeah. And so he's, no questions asked. And it was awesome. So I transitioned over there. We didn't even have an office at the time, but we got one. And shortly after, we hired Rhea Pasricha, who's my partner in LA, and she's the head of our West Coast office. And so we've worked together for 12 years now. And so she was the first A&R hire. So yeah, and then we just started building from there. And
did you have writers at this point, or?
We did. There were 12 when I started.
Okay.
And again, it was all kind of like Luke's people that he personally had signed. And the company had come to this turning point where, I think by the time Rhea had started, we probably had around 20.
Yeah.
And, he can't pull 20 people into a session. So that's when Becca said, listen, we need to start building this out and making this, a full-fledged publishing company. And so when Rhea started, we all started, figuring out calendars and started taking that stuff over. And I think the whole goal once we hired Rhea was, let's start signing stuff outside of Luke, and let's sign rock, let's sign country, let's sign hip hop, whatever it is. And they don't necessarily have to be Luke's people, because Luke's going to always want to sign people he wants to sign. And then he gives us the free reign to sign who we want to sign. So, I think from there, we hired a couple more people on staff, and we've kind of tried to maintain that model from back then of just, as we sign people, we hire more staff. And we don't sign a lot, but we definitely have, certainly have grown since we had 20 writers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, I guess, what kind of stuff were you looking for early on? Like, how do you feel like your ears developed, just from the environment that you were in working with Dr. Luke, or were you, I don't know, how did you kind of like train your ears?
It's a good question. I grew up listening to, and still have a really eclectic palette when it comes to music. So, I think genuinely when I got to actually start signing things, I wasn't so pop focused. And I love pop music, but I remember my first thought was, we don't have a rock person. We don't have someone who's like in the alt space. And at the time I was loving the Strokes and was Cage the Elephant. That was what I was listening to at that time. And I really wanted something in that space. And that's not necessarily what Luke works on. So I think what's been really cool working at Prescription is we do have free reign to sign things we're just really excited about. And I remember the first time Luke, I brought something to him that I wanted to sign, and he said, I don't really get this, but if you think it's great, let's do it. And I remember being so terrified and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm the worst A&R of all time. And luckily it worked out, and it was a really fun project to work on. And I think, it wasn't until I really processed that and thinking like, wow, how cool is it that I have someone who is like, yeah, this might not be my thing, but I trust you and I trust your ears, and I don't know everything. So go do it,
Yeah. Room to run.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think is really important, and also really important for, him to be able to say, like, if it doesn't work, that's also okay. But now, like, it's not always going to be what you think it is. And I think my strategy of signing for sure has changed over the years. I think when you're a young A&R and you're hungry and you want your skin in the game. And, you know, I don't know, there's things that just shift. And that, of course, the longer I'm here, I'm like, yes, I want that, but we're also running a business. And so we have to make sure that, you know, that's going to make money at some point. Yeah. And so I feel really, again, I'm really grateful that I work at a place where we really don't have to pay attention to TikTok and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, I mean, we look at it, but it's not the reason we sign things.
Yeah, which is nice because it gets exhausting.
I can only imagine. Yeah. You know.
What are this sort of a process question for you?
Okay.
From my friends, I am not well steeped in LA publishing world, but my friends who are based there as writers, are the deals structured differently than a typical Nashville deal?
Yes.
And is that like, so in Nashville, a normal deal is like whatever the draw is in a certain amount of time, typically.
Yep.
And how does it work in LA? Is it, I don't know.
So sometimes deals are that, but rarely. Gotcha. Most deals in LA are recoupment-based deals. So you have to recoup whatever advance you get.
Gotcha.
Before you can move into your next option.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and nobody does full publishing deals in LA. It's all co-publishing.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And admin too.
This is like a random thought I had, but so if I have a hit song and I own all the publishing, it's probably a great time to sign a deal in LA because you can just recoup it straight away.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just seeing how the game works, you know?
Yes.
I got it.
Yeah, you
all I need is a hit song.
There you go. That's all you need. Maybe a few.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like I've got a really great understanding of how all that started, but how did you end up in Nashville? Because that seems kind of random.
Yes. Not as random as you would think. When I started, officially moved out of Luke's house and was at Prescription full time, Becca and Luke did a joint venture with Big Machine.
Okay.
And we signed 3 writers with them at the time. And so the idea of this partnership was that, you know, neither of us at the time had offices in LA, both LA and Nashville, but if we partner, we can help each other.
Yeah.
And so I think it was our first sort of toe dipping into Nashville. And Becca knew that I was from Indiana and that it was a little closer to my home, but she said, you know, do you want to be the Nashville person and you can help with the Big Machine writers. And so I started coming here in 2013, and came here pretty regularly and I loved it here.
Yeah.
And I actually, you know, when I was still in college, I definitely considered moving here instead of LA. And I think I would have had I gotten an opportunity here. But my first opportunity was in LA. I was sort of open to anything, New York too. But so when I started coming here, I was helping those 3 writers and we did a couple camps and it was awesome. But I just knew, I kept thinking like, man, I don't think I could ever live here because I don't only want to do country music if I'm an A&R. I want to have a roster as expansive as my personal palette. And so, and I never really felt fully like I could do that here. I was also still very new, you know, to A&R and was still learning so much. And so I started just spending time here. I came probably once a quarter, for 3 or 4 years. And I actually ended up signing one of my first writers who lived in Nashville and was born and raised in Nashville, and he was a rock guy. This guy, Jonathan Gersitano, he's awesome. He actually plays in Jordan Davis's band now.
Gotcha.
But so anyway, I was coming here a lot, and when I was here on one of my routine trips in summer of 2016, I started having a lot of the same conversation with both business side and with some unsigned writers and producers and artists. And I had about 4 meetings in a row that were all with unsigned writers who were not making country. And they were amazing. And I was pretty blown away that they weren't signed yet.
Yeah.
And every time at each meeting, I'd say, how are you not signed yet? How does nobody know about you? And the story was always the same. It was either, I've met with everybody in town. Nobody really knows what to do with me because I don't make country. Or I have a couple offers, but I don't really trust the team because I don't think that they have the pull in LA or in the pop scene that I need.
Gotcha.
Or I didn't know, I haven't even had the guts to take meetings, or I haven't had the opportunity to take meetings because I don't make country music.
Yeah.
And so because it truly was like 4 in a row. So the light bulb kind of went off.
Right.
And I flew home and, sat with my husband and was like, I think something's happening. And I feel like it could be really cool. And maybe if we get there now, we'll be ahead of it. And, so had some conversations. Honestly, Luke was so incredibly supportive and didn't even blink an eye. I mean, he said, I'm sad to see you leave LA, but if this is where if you think this is a profitable market, let's do it. Like I'm all in. And so he like kind of took the ball and ran with it, was like, let's open an office and have you run it. And, I was so grateful for that opportunity. I had never run an office before and hadn't had my own staff before. And so this was a really big step in my career. So this was about 8 years ago now, because I was out in Nashville by October. So when I got here, I was renting from Leslie DePiro on Music Row, and which was awesome. And I had a little office and a couple writing rooms. And, I remember getting here and thinking, okay, I'm here. Now what? Now what do I do? And where are all the people? And how do I meet everybody? And my first 3 months were just
meetings and
crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, first of all, I knew Nashville was like the hang place, but man, the coffee, going from coffee to breakfast to coffee to lunch to coffee to drinks to dinner to then after dinner drink, like it was insane and so fun, and everybody was incredibly welcoming. But I also had a couple friends who didn't warn me, but they just said, like, just be careful when you get here because it's a sacred place. Everyone loves it here. And, there's a lot of people coming to town and visiting and thinking that they can just come in and do country,
Right.
So I was super cognizant of that coming in. And I had obviously been coming here so much that I knew the sacredness of it and how special it was. And I also very much from the beginning told everybody, I come in peace. I've lived in LA. I need to learn country. I know that. And the genres are cross-pollinating. Let's work together. If you want to be in my world, let me help you. If I want to be in yours, hopefully that we can help each other. Yeah. And I think it was really cool. I think I had a lot of cold emails from people just interested in why I was coming here and why I wanted to be here. And it was really awesome. I remember we had a writer here who we had worked with for a while, and she had a show like my first month being here. And I swear to you, the whole town showed up. And I remember being so baffled by that, because in LA that just doesn't happen. If you invite industry people to a show, everyone flakes. Oh, there's traffic. Oh, it's a little late, But I showed up, and I mean, everybody who I asked to come was there. And I just remember thinking, like, this is such a cool place. And if this is how the music business is done here, then I prefer this because this is cool and this feels more like home. And
it's just part of what makes Nashville so special. It's family. Family and environment.
And it's just, I don't know. I think our industry is full of what can you do for me?
Mm-hmm.
But I think here I don't know. It feels a bit more like, if you do this for me, then I will do something for you. And it feels like genuine friendship as opposed to, I'm not really interested in this relationship unless I'm getting something out of it.
Right.
Which obviously still exists. It's always going to exist. But I do think it's a little less so here. It feels a bit more genuine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, is what I prefer.
Yeah. Yeah. What is do you have like, a high watermark along the way, especially like since you moved to Nashville, that was just like something that you'll remember, like a successful moment or whatever?
I mean, I have a lot.
Yeah.
I have a lot. I feel like I am oftentimes, I think everybody does, whether you're a creator or on the business side, I do feel a lot of times like I am pushing a boulder up a mountain.
Yeah.
And I have like everything working against me at all times. And
so it's not just me,
not just you, not just my writers. Because I think especially being someone who does something a little different in a town that does a lot of the same thing, can scare people. It can, I don't know, just I think when people feel change, it scares them, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I think any little victory for us along the way, I've really tried to celebrate because it has been so hard and so challenging and so rewarding. So the first thing that comes to mind, and this is funny maybe to some people, but we talk about it often. The first time one of our artists got New Music Friday.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never forget that. It was our artist, Anna Mae, and she was my first signing when I moved here. We popped champagne. We were like celebrating in our office. And I remember, thinking back on it now, it was like a tiny little moment, but that was huge for us. I mean, I think we'd been here 2 years and it just felt like someone was finally listening to what we were doing. Yeah. And so that was a fun moment. I think, we used to do, but pre-pandemic, we're trying to start doing them again, but pre-pandemic, we did showcases probably once a quarter, just to introduce Nashville to some of the writers at Prescription. And I think of, I think of those showcases, and I think those were really proud moments too. We always packed the room. Yeah. People always, again, everyone would just show up, and it was just always really special. I think, speaking more like big picture, we celebrated our first #1 from one of our Nashville signings in 2022 with a producer, writer, artist I signed. She was my second signing to Prescription when I moved here. She goes by Malibu Babie.
Yeah.
And at the time, I knew her as Lo when I signed her. And she was this sweet bundle of sunshine who was singing at a writer's round at Razor and Tie at the time. Wow. And it was like a pop round, and we met and we just knew we were kindred spirits. And she was like, I've heard so much about you and I want to meet you. And she came into my office the next week and she played me a song and it was so good. And I said, who produced that? And she said, well, me, but with my friend, Steven. And I said, well, that's awesome. So you produce? And she was like, well, kind of, sort of. Not really. And I said, but you do if you produce this one. So
yeah,
she had this energy that I just knew this girl's going to make it. Yeah. I don't know how, I don't know what it's going to be, but she's going to be somebody. I just have this really strong gut feeling. And she had no cuts, she had no songs out or anything, but I was like, I have to sign her. She is just so awesome. So fast forward to 2020, she calls me and she says, I want to move to LA. And as heartbroken as I was, I said, girl, you got to do it. You know, I fully support. And I think, you know, if you think that's the right move for you, then I support and I got you. And she got out to LA and 2022 comes along. She co-produced Super Freaky Girl by Nicki Minaj with Luke and Aaron Joseph and Vaughn Oliver, who are also signed to us at Prescription. It was a Prescription special on that one. And on the same day, she had a release with Megan Thee Stallion for her single Her, which was a track that I pitched. And it was a crazy day. It was one of those days, again, I'll remember forever. We knew when Super Freaky Girl was coming out. We didn't know when Her was coming out. And, you know, the clock turned at whatever time it does here in Nashville.
11.
Yes. And New Music Friday loads. And the top 2 songs are Super Freaky Girl by Nicki Minaj and Her by Megan Thee Stallion. And
that's so sick.
It gives me goosebumps still talking about it. Because it was just like, this girl manifests. She works so hard. And she literally manifested before she met me because she's such a Prescription fan. Like, I want to be signed to Prescription Songs. And she's just one of those people that she figures it out and she keeps going and she grinds. And seeing good people win like that, there's just, it's fuels me and why I've stayed in this job. And it's been so cool to watch that. And we did our first #1 party here. For that, because, you know, she was living in LA by then, but, you know, I was like, this was one of our first signings when I moved here. And
I mean, you got to do it.
You have to.
I'm so bad.
We all are
at celebrating. Like, this podcast hit a year.
That's so
and we
awesome.
hit all these like metrics that we wanted to hit. And in my mind, I'm like, we got to do something. We just never have.
Yeah.
And we will.
You got to.
I know. I think I overcomplicated. It's like my birthday or something. I'm like, well, I don't want to plan anything because, you know, what if it sucks?
It won't. Yeah. People will show up.
I just need to pop some champagne or something.
You do. You got to celebrate. I mean,
you got to.
That is something that I don't think LA does very well. I think, and I respect the hustle so much, and I respect the like, okay, what's next? We have the hit now, but what's the next one?
Yeah.
Nashville celebrates everything, which I think the answer is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important, especially for songwriters who, you know, we gotta.
Well, it takes so long.
It takes so long.
It's so hard.
It takes so long. And so anyway, I think that was a special moment. And then most recently, a couple weeks ago, one of our OG writers, Nick Bailey, who's an angel among us, he co-wrote the Lana Del Rey Quavo single that came out on the 4th of July.
Amazing.
And I think, you know, Nick is, to me, such a good example of somebody who, and again, just another like grinds. I mean, that guy he'll do triples. He is crazy. A different breed, and he works so hard, and he just loves making music. And again, when you see people like that have wins and have big moments, I think it does fuel me. It makes me. Yeah. It's a good reminder of why we're actually doing it. And
well, songwriters, you know, they need a champion.
They have to.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, well, I feel like there's so much that we haven't gotten to, so maybe you'll have to come back sometime. But before we get out of here, I always like to ask people if you had some advice that you could give to, you know, a younger version of you just getting started on your journey. What would you say?
I would say, keep the blinders on. I would tell current me that too, but past me too. keep the blinders on, keep doing you. Don't listen to anybody else except for your mentors and people you look up to, but keep the blinders on. I think that's I tell my staff that, I tell my writers that. It is so hard. It is so hard. It's almost impossible, but you have to. And you have to trust your gut. So that's one. And I had a thought on the second one. What was my second? I think it's just continuing to follow your gut no matter what. And I think I have done that. And I think I've always subconsciously done that, even as a young person. And I think like really making sure, I think, if to the people that know me well know that 14 years ago, I was such a different person in terms of how I stand up for myself, how I'm 100% a people pleaser. And I feel like over the years and the amount of tough conversations I've had to have with staff, with songwriters, with my personal life, whatever it might be, I think, staying true to myself, holding myself to integrity, and those things are so crucial to getting to where you want to be. And you are not going to fix any problem by sitting around and just complaining about it and thinking it's going to fix itself. Yeah. The only person who's going to work, there's nobody who's going to work harder than you for your life. Yeah. And so I think, I don't know. Those are a bunch of different thoughts I have, but I think
that's incredibly relatable. And I'm very much a people pleaser as well. And this has been like a newer skill I've been working on, where you do have to have the harder conversations. Yeah. There's this thing I tell Ben all the time. I say, hard decisions, easy life, easy decisions, hard life. And sometimes those conversations that I don't want to have, once I have them, I try and have them with respect,
of course,
and integrity, because it's never
fun.
It's never fun, but it's also like sometimes it's not like someone's doing a bad job. No. It's just not the right fit.
Right.
Or it's not the right time.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. So I totally relate to that.
And I think it helps whoever's on the receiving end of it too, whether they see it that way or not. I think tough conversations are really crucial and important.
I think people always look, maybe not even maybe in the moment you're getting some flack or whatever, but I think people always look back. I know every time, I've had to, sometimes it's not been my decision when I'm leaving somewhere. And whenever someone's just handled it, like, I don't know what the right way is, but you know.
Yeah. Of
it's
course.
respectful and
human being.
And how can I help?
Yes.
All that stuff. So I always look back on that with fondness.
Yeah.
So
no, totally.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Of course.
And that's it. That's the pod.
Woohoo.
See you later. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. If you want to submit a question for one of our Q&A episodes, you can do so at tenuretowne.com. We would love it if you would join the Tenuretown community, which just means we'll send you updates via email about stuff we got going on. And of course, please rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Wherever you listen or watch this thing, we appreciate you so much. See you next week.